Hi, welcome to Oakmoon Crafts and to the first video in the new series called Useful 3D Prints, where each week I'll be showcasing one useful 3D printed item. To kickstart this, I'm going to make a 3D printed signage that I wanted for my workshop. So let's get started with it. I started with the background for the signage. Here I'm using a 2mm piece of plywood that is 35 by 35 centimeter, and I'm gonna layer it up with a 6mm thickness of balsa wood. I want the balsa wood to be cut into smaller strips, so here I'm marking it using a wingtip divider. The strips will be 2.5 centimeter in width, and since balsa wood is soft enough, I'm cutting it with a penknife, but the 6mm piece of balsa wood was pretty tough for me to cut. So if you wanna go and use the same technique, maybe I suggest you go for a thinner, maybe a 3mm piece of balsa wood. Alright, so now I have all my strips of balsa wood cut into smaller strips, and as you can see, they're not straight because I had a hard time cutting it using the penknife, but it's fine because I'm going for a rustic look. Next, I went ahead and marked the pieces into smaller strips that are the width of the plywood. I decided to use 3M Super 77 spray adhesive to mount the balsa wood strips to the plywood. I really like using this glue because it's very quick and it gets a lot of surface area covered very quickly. So I just went ahead and started laying down all the strips of balsa wood like so. This is how the backdrop looks after all the strips of balsa wood have been added. I also added a couple of backing strips on the back to add additional support. I wanted it to have some rustic elements in it, so I decided to add some small nails along the edges and in the center of the backdrop. I wanted the grooves in between the strips of wood, the balsa wood, to be much deeper, so it gives it more old worn out wood, like recycled wood effect. I used a Dremel with a drum sander and sanded in the edges. You can also use a file and sandpaper. I just happened to have a Dremel and it was a lot faster. I wanted the sign to be high contrast, and since my 3D prints were white color, I decided to paint the background black. While the paint was drying, I sent the 3D files to my printer to print it out. I ended up doing it in 3 small batches as all the files couldn't fit on my printer at one same time. So this is how the 3D prints turned out. Here I'm making sure that I have all the parts and nothing is missing. To make my life easier during the assembly, I printed out the design to scale on a piece of A3 paper. Here you can see me cutting out the edges of all the letters so I can use them as registration points. I then carefully measured the template and taped it down on top of the backdrop. Here you can see me using a silver pen to mark the registration points. This will come in handy when I start gluing on the 3D printed parts to the backdrop. And to the last part, which is gluing up all the 3D printed parts to the backdrop. I decided to use Yoo-hoo glue because it's a very good all-purpose glue and it dries very quickly. Here you can see why I decided to take the extra step and make the registration points. With this, you can be sure that everything is going to be straight. And here is a quick time lapse of me finishing up assembling the rest of the 3D printed parts. This is the final result of the signage. I really liked how it turned out. It looks great in my workspace. And I'm still amazed at what you can do with 3D printing. I hope you like this first video in the new useful 3D print series. I plan on making more of such videos and putting my 3D printer to better use. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you.